And we're joined by our great friend Dave Petzo, Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. I want to thank everybody who came out to Miller's Mission, a great time. And, of course, you can continue to contribute, BoiseRM.org, online anytime. Dave Petzo joining us now. Good to see us. Good to see you here. Perhaps you've spent too much time outdoors. You seem to have quite a cough.
I don't think so. I did spend some time outdoors. It was not a bad weekend, was it?
Well, I lived at Walmart all week, so.
Well, at least it wasn't terrible out there. Was it terrible cold? Yes?
Yeah, Dave. It was pretty terrible out there.
I'm guessing it was in the evenings, but during the day wasn't it okay?
No, it was pretty cold, Dave.
Was it
cold
okay?
out there.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the slowest week of the year. Is there anything going on this year?
No,
right now,
there's
week?
not. There really is not. You're right, Kevin. It is the slowest week of the year, except for Christmas. Excuse me, depending on where that is.
Would you like another sip of the coffee?
The coffee isn't quite doing it. But
right.
I think I'm okay now. I hope so.
Yes, sir.
But, yeah, it is very slow. We get into these times where there's vacations and everybody, takes it. If Christmas is on Tuesday or Wednesday, then they take the whole week off, things like that. But other than Christmas week, this is an incredibly slow week. Even though the market does open up for a few minutes on Friday, it only is a couple hours, and it really is a 4-day weekend.
4-day weekend indeed. So what is going on?
Well, again, every little breath we hear about the tax reform, is it going to happen? Anybody voting for it or against it makes a comment. That's going to be talked about a lot. But the reality, Kevin, is until this actually gets passed and we have reconciliation, we will not really know what we're going to wind up with in the bill. So, and the lobbyists are just getting fired up. And you and I talked about this in the last week. Everybody's all fired up about their one little thing that they've got that they think is going to be a big deal. And I think it's just really short-sighted. It's absurd. And I hope voters and therefore the pressure is put on the senators and congressmen to get this deal done.
Well, you look at the headline from USA Today, affordable housing could be out the door if the proposals go through because you won't be able to deduct your mortgage interest deduction anymore. That's a pretty big deal. Yet, as we've crossed swords or crossed microphones before, you don't see it that way.
Not at all. I think that's absurd. And of course, that just plays perfectly into the liberal playbook, which is don't do anything. Make sure that there's no tax reform, there's no success, even though we'll pretend we want a middle-class tax cut. I'm not sure what that would look like. They've had plenty of time to come up with one. They never have. And so I don't think they really want one. They just want to be the party of no. We're not going to do anything. We want to stop Donald Trump. But that just plays into that.
Well, that's what the Republicans did, though, with Barack Obama.
Often, yes.
Except they couldn't do it with health care.
They could not stop health care. That's correct. They were not able to stop health care. They were able to stop a lot of other things, and I'm glad they did. I mean, obviously, raising taxes and increasing regulation was their objective. So I'm glad a lot of that got stopped. But at any rate, what we're looking at right now, as far as this goes, Kevin, is raising the deduction amounts. So when we're talking about affordable, when we're talking about people that get deductions,
right?
They're not the lower end. So when we're talking about affordable housing, is it really going to stop somebody who is doing very well and somehow has enough itemized deductions to get over what is now going to be double the standard deduction? In both bills, they're saying that, so we don't know what's going to come out, but they're saying double what the standard deduction is. That means that lower-income people, for the first time, are going to have higher incomes pushed at them that they will pay no taxes on. It doesn't stop affordable at all. It stops higher-income people, and therefore I don't think they're the target of this article, from being able to deduct some of the interest on their house. That's who's going to be affected.
Dave Petzo is joining us as we continue on. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. So for the end of the year, though, let's talk a little bit about some of your favorite local businesses, Simplot, Micron, HP. We like to call them the usual suspects here at KIDO Talk Radio. What's going on with them?
They're all doing well, it appears. I mean, obviously Simplot is a private company, and so we don't really have all of the, all of the information. They don't need to share any of it with us, but they certainly seem to be expanding their operations. Things seem to be going well, and the ag in general, we can draw that the ag world is doing very, very well right now. Companies like Deere are hitting all-time highs on the market, all-time high profits. They're doing well, and so I would certainly extrapolate that ag is doing very, very well. And further, Micron obviously is killing it. They're doing super out there with chip prices being so high and stubbornly high, if you will, from a perspective of the iPhone or the cell phone makers and all that have all the chips put inside of it. They are stubbornly high. And that's great for Micron. And as we've talked before, Kevin, the multiplier effect from those companies when they give out stock and they give out bonuses because they're doing so well is huge in a community the size of Boise.
Yeah, but on the other hand, they're also going to have layoffs.
They are.
Because they're moving their factory to Taiwan because apparently that's a lot cheaper than employing Americans.
Testing is, and that's, of course, it makes some sense for the testing to be somewhere else, not in Boise. It's not exactly near any of the major users of it.
Well, then maybe they should just move out then. Maybe they should move to San Francisco.
That is always been the big worry, isn't it? It is. It's a very real possibility.
What would you say about that?
Someday, I hope they don't. My goodness gracious.
Would you lead the charge to keep them here?
I think we all would. I think we all would. Kevin, it's not, I don't think they're going to go anywhere because this is a company, when people come here and live here, they love this community, and they don't want to go live somewhere else. So I think that
I wouldn't want to live in Taiwan.
I wouldn't either. I sure wouldn't. I'll take Boise over anywhere, anytime. And so when we have that and people moving here, they love this community, and they don't want to take it anywhere else.
Now we have a caller here for our great friend Dave Petso here at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to Dee Dee in Boise, who has a question about the tax bills for Dave Petso. Dee Dee, good morning.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Kevin. I have a question. My son is going to go to graduate school, and they get stipends, and they're only taxed on part of it. Our understanding is if this goes through, that means that their whole stipends will be taxed, and that it'll make it a lot more difficult to be a graduate student because you're going to have to pay monstrous taxes.
Well, I don't know about monstrous. How much is the stipend anyway?
It's $50,000 on top of the others, so it would be taxed on $80,000.
Tax on 80 with the double exemptions. And right now, what is the deal with the stipends?
Right now, they're only taxed on the portion that they're given, as opposed to the portion that they are the whole portion. There's some of it that I guess they consider it kind of like a forgiveness. So he's taxed on 30 as opposed to 80. He's taxed on
30, not 80. Wow, that's tremendous. $80,000 they just give him to go to school. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
For his particular field. So
that's fantastic.
Kind of a big deal, and he's not sure. Yeah, he's not sure, being a single guy, if he can afford to pay out of a $30,000 living expense, if he can afford to pay taxes for $80,000.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact tax rate is on 80, but with the doubling the personal exemption, I'm guessing it's going to be somewhere around the 15% tax bracket. That would be my guess, and so it definitely would be higher.
15, yeah, it would. 15 if you take that's $12,000, and you only have $30,000 to live. So basically, you've got $18,000 or so to live on after you pay your taxes. So that's just one of those little weird wrinkles in there, unintended consequences that, higher education is pretty important. So just kind of try to figure this one out.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know, and the bill has certainly not passed. There's a lot of different ramifications, and it hasn't even gone through the Senate at this point, let alone reconciliation. Lots
All right,
to do.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dee Dee. How about that? They're going after kids now.
Kevin, so you don't like this bill?
You don't
like tax reform?
I would. You know something? I think once again, I think everybody talks about a cut to the middle class. I'll believe it when I see it from these guys. These guys are the same people that said, we're going to take care of Obamacare. Mm-hmm. They haven't.
Yep.
These guys say, hey, we're going to do this. Look, one thing that I'll give the Democrats, 6 of them have written up articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. Now, we had reporters, average citizens, being persecuted by the IRS, by the NSA, in total violation of their constitutional rights. Nothing was done.
Right.
Nothing was done. So these gentlemen in Washington and ladies, I don't agree with you on the mortgage tax deduction. I think, again, if you have, just like the legal system, if you have the right CPA, if you have the right person, right lawyer, you're going to be fine. Everybody else, again, now if there were Dave Petzo was in charge and you're a man of integrity and everybody paid the same rate and there were no, getting around the system, sure. Mm-hmm. I just don't have faith that they're doing the right thing. Now, your argument is something's better than nothing. Well, to a degree, but going back to their repeal and replace of Obamacare, they can't guarantee that our premiums are going to go down. So I don't get how you're in a performance-based business, Dave Petzo, mm-hmm. and you have been for years.
I think everybody is.
Oh, well,
so are you.
No, I don't think that Congress is.
Oh, that's fair.
I don't think that they are. Where they can sit there and say, well, we're going to do Obamacare, we're going to get rid of it, but your premiums are still going to go up. And then I see major pharmaceutical, major medical, major insurance, all their stocks going up, which is great for their shareholders, but not so good for the American public. If you're going to do something, then make sure it has the right effect. Mm-hmm. What do they call that? The cure is worse than the sickness or something like that?
Sure, or unintended consequences.
Right. So, that's my thoughts on that. But, again, I do want to get your thoughts on Charles Manson, though. You remember Helter Skelter a little better than I do. Yeah. Just a tad. That had a big impact on people that were little kids in that time. Whether you lived in California or Ohio or West Virginia or wherever, people were scared to death that could happen to them.
Well, it was. It was in a way. It was an amazing, if you will, a line in the sand of the end of innocence. I was growing up in that time, and you couldn't help hear about it. It was, and really, we had a world where, honestly, Kevin, we disappeared all day long. We just went and threw rocks at each other, went swimming in the river, and nowadays you can't leave the house without bubble wrap and floaties, and you can't go anywhere near the river because obviously you could hit your head on a rock and die. Weirdly, we all survived and nobody died, but we had an amazing childhood where people didn't assume some nut job was going to, take the kids out. And it really was an end of innocence in America where I didn't grow up like this alone. We, all across the country, that's the way it was.
Right.
And it really kind of ended with that. And it was a very tragic time. I know it was almost a celebration of this nut job, too. It was hard. And it was a very difficult case. I remember reading the book and seeing how hard they had to work to actually convict this group of psychopaths and actually having people continue on in his name. It was disturbing, but it was a weird time, Kevin. It's weird to wake up to this morning and go, Charles Manson's dead.
Finally,
yeah.
More coming up with Dave Petzo next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And we continue on. Dave Petzo joining us here at KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning. What do you make of the NFL? We're looking at ratings going down. We're looking at stadiums, believe it or not, that are empty, and all based on these cultural issues, which is not good business. And then you have Jerry Jones threatening to sue not only the league, but sue individual owners. And then there's a little-known bylaw that if Jerry Jones is not a good Jerry Jones, it would take a majority of the NFL owners, they could strip him of his franchise.
Yeah.
So from a business perspective, what do you make of it?
It's total chaos. I don't have any idea why there's even a fight over whether the commissioner of the NFL, let's just call it not of the NFL, let's call it of a business where the owners can't get along, where the stadiums are emptying out, the TV ratings are dropping, and people have watched this particular entertainment for their entire life aren't watching anymore. And jersey sales are going down. People won't buy any of their equipment. And we're thinking that this guy needs to get his contract again. I don't understand. It's a world that I can't understand. I can't understand how a Jeff Immelt at GE is there to destroy the company for 20 years. I mean, I don't even understand this. It makes no sense at all to me that CEOs don't have to perform. But when they do, it's great. But when they don't, why don't we get rid of them? And when the director of all of this, which is the commissioner of the NFL, has a complete basket case there. I don't know all the ins and outs, but what I'm saying is from the outside in, that's who has to go. If you're not winning games, the coach goes. If the ratings go down or if the overall package is diminishing in value, then whoever that is, which would be the director, with the director of the NFL, they have to go. And that makes no sense to me at all, that this is even Jerry Jones is having any trouble getting rid of the commissioner. It makes no sense. And I don't understand what they're doing, Kevin. Baseball did this when I was a kid, and baseball was America's pastime. And they went on strike, and it was never the same. I mean, never, ever the same. Sure, they make money, but not like they did, and it was never America's pastime anymore after that.
Traffic and weather together. All right, this is a good one here. I've been doing a little research, and we've got a little time. Usually it's so busy with you, we don't really get time to go into kind of an unforeseen local story that people here locally haven't been picking up on, and it's all about internet marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you the story of a guy that we've had on this program, Nathan Barry of ConvertKit, who employs a ton of people here, who rented out Jump. Seth Godin came in. I'm going to tell you another one. You're going to love this guy. His name is Russell Brunson, former Boise State wrestler, for a company called ClickFunnels, right off Chinden. They're yonder in Meridian, right across from Holy Apostles Church. And what they do is they come up with these sales funnels for people that want to market their own businesses. And he did it without any venture capital. And he's going to have an event in Orlando with Tony Robbins. This is a local kid.
Wow.
Probably, early to mid-30s, Boise State wrestler. And I've been studying stuff, and it's amazing. I went into his office like 2 weeks ago, and they're so focused and they're so successful that they don't meet with people. It's all online. And this isn't it's just a new way of thinking. And I said, well, do you have somebody there that I could speak with? And then I saw a couple of them in the back shooting videos, and I guess you'd say they're millennial focused. But it was amazing that they didn't have anybody there that could show you the stuff. I'll say, look, I'll buy it, but I need someone physically to do that. Do you think that's the wave of the future? I mean, or should you have somebody there to help us older folks to point and click?
Both.
Yeah.
Need both. I think they need both. We're not all dead yet, okay?
Right.
And so, and you stop and you think about, it's the same argument, for example, to me, Kevin, for years in radio.
Right.
But the difference is you can segment it, right? Because you have different stations that appeal to different demographics. But it was always the argument, for example, that our demographic here on talk radio is older, and like they don't buy things. Well, of course they do. And that's the absurdity. Because we have such great listeners, loyal listeners that listen, right?
Well, let me just say this to you.
Yeah.
And whether I get in trouble for this or not, that this format is the most underutilized format, this station, because the people that are on this station have the most education,
Yep.
the most money,
Yep.
the most disposable income, and it's so underserved. And when we have people, as you can attest, that listen to this station, that understand the power of it. Now, you can go to a place that plays music, and you can get 5,000 people in there, and they won't buy. But people here get it, and you're right. It's a mystery that you and I talk about off the air all the time.
All the time. It just makes no sense. Because you're right. Because you're talking about the group with the most money,
right,
highest education. Yeah. That's who we're talking to. Day in and day out, and advertisers go, I need 25-year-old people that don't have any brain. No, you don't, and because they are one time and done. They buy and they're out of money. It's not. It makes no sense.
Or they don't have the money. But back to this guy, Mr. Brunson again.
Both.
I've been studying his videos, and here's a kid, I think he's worth $37 million, and Forbes did a big feature on him about how he's just kind of developed this thing. You're going to love this. He had a mini seminar around here. I didn't know about it, or I probably would have attended, where he developed a potato gun. And then he did an online course of make your own potato gun, or sold a potato gun. And the guy made tons of money out of this. And I don't know if you call it impulse or marketing or what have you. It's definitely a new economy. And we have these people, as you talk about on Money Matters, right here in the Treasure Valley. It's amazing.
It is amazing. And how many things, because you and I have talked about this for years. Where are the jobs coming from?
Right.
What's going to happen? Da, da, da. And we've always talked about it without knowing who those people were, exactly what they're doing, like you're talking about. But we're seeing so many little pods develop. And I've seen them in downtown near me where they've got all these startups that have 5, 10 employees.
They have those incubators.
And they incubate them.
Yeah.
They're little incubator places. And they're getting such support from private money, venture capitalists, things like that, angel investors, where they do have a great little environment. Most of them don't succeed, but they employ and they grow, and some of them do, and of course, as you're pointing out, have tremendous success. Amazing success,
right?
But it is, and these are it's a different way. But a lot of it's high tech. It's super good industry for people that want to live in this valley. And the world now says you don't have to live in Silicon Valley at all,
right?
To do technology, you don't have to live in a big city at all.
But here are these guys, these kids locally, and Nathan Barry, who has been so gracious. We've reached out to him. We've had him on. We'd love to get Mr. Brunson on. But you bring in Seth Godin, and you bring in people all over the country to come here to Boise. And then you have Russell Brunson again. And if you know Mr. Brunson, we'd love to have him on. That, partnering with Tony Robbins and Marcus Lemonis, all these things going on here that, if you don't cover it and if I don't stumble across it, they're just hidden secrets here.
They are, because nobody covers it.
Right.
Well, the newspaper, there are no reporters anymore. There's nobody out has any time to go dig up a story locally.
Right.
And so it does. If we don't see it and it gets reported directly, people don't see it.
Right. But do you believe that is, as we talk about totally rewiring the economy, that it's just going to become, 5, 10 years, 20 years from now, it's just create your own job?
Why not? Why not? People can. And when you're thinking about that, my son-in-law it works from his house, right? Just sits there and boom, creates websites.
Does he like that?
He loves it. Yeah. He loves it. And there's also, I didn't really realize this, but there's...
Can you get me a good deal on a website?
Yeah.
Can you put in a good word?
I can put in a good word. I don't know.
Can I get the Dave Petsko discount?
Yeah, I think you can probably get that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's worth a couple nickels. But the point is he is not unusual at all.
Well, Seattle though.
It is Seattle.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know.
No,
I don't know why they live there. It makes no sense.
Here's the other thing, though. You take a look at the socialization of that, though.
Yeah.
Do you miss something by not going to work and
totally do.
And hanging out with the misery index here?
Well, you do, but here's the other side of that. Okay. So what they're doing in Seattle is they have all these little places where you go and they set up workstations, so it looks like work, feels like work.
Like
and
at the coffee shop or something?
Yeah, almost. It's not the coffee shop, but it's a quiet environment. But you have a place you can go get a cup of coffee. They've got restrooms, and you've got workstations. You've got cubicles, and different people are working.
So you actually rent a cube?
You rent a cube. And they are big. They're big. And what people are doing, or some do, is they'll go and work there for a couple hours a day just to have that break of getting out of the house,
right,
getting out of their pajamas, and going to work. And they feel like they can work more effectively if they change the environment. And I think that's probably true of all of us. I'm more effective at the office, always have been, than sitting at home looking at the computer or working on something.
Dave Petzo, we always appreciate it. Thank you.
Kevin, thanks again for what you did last week. Big deal. A real big deal for the rescue mission.
It's a pleasure, and of course, what you guys do each and every year at the Petzo Center. We'll see you 7 Cares Day.
We will see you 7 Cares Day. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Dave. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Shift takes place. Some people have argued, some Democrats and liberals have argued that a reevaluation of Bill Clinton's presidency is required. What do you think about that? In order to be clear about what the new standard is and use elements from the past that are well known.
Well, first of all, let's remember that he did face impeachment. it wasn't as if it was just tossed to the side. He faced impeachment. I think that the victims who came forward were not treated as they should have been. They should have been believed because, as I pointed out, most people who come forward are telling the truth.
In the case of Al Franken, what's your feeling about that? There have been some columnists who've written that basically, again, liberals have said he must leave the Senate in order for Democrats to retain their credibility on this issue, or else they're open to the charge that Democrats apply it when it comes to Republicans, but are more generous when it comes to their own team.
I think it's appropriate for the Ethics Committee to do an investigation. Senator Franken has actually agreed to that as well. I also think that it has to be determined if there's a pattern of sexual harassment. Incidents have to be severe, or they have to be ones that happen over a period of time. So I think we'll wait and see what the investigation determines.
Is that an instructive distinction then, pattern versus specific mistake, in terms of what might penalize somebody but be the difference between penalizing and expulsion?
And that's what the courts have held with sexual harassment cases. If there's a pattern, then sexual harassment is found to be in existence. If it's a...
You know, by the way, good morning, Kevin Miller here at KIDO Talk Radio. That was Congresswoman Jackie Speer on CBS's Face the Nation, talking about that Bill Clinton's accusers in the 1990s should be believed. And I'll be posting this on the Kevin Miller Show Facebook site. And this issue about what if Ken Starr was right? You know, dear friends, and by the way, to our young listeners, and we have so many, and so many stop by that joined us, whether it was Andrea or Philip or others, you probably don't remember what happened in the 90s, the cultural wars, the first shots that were fired, and really it had a lot to do with Bill Clinton and what he did in his personal life should not be reflective in how he was the president of the United States. And people ripped Ken Starr. People ripped the Republicans. People did all these things. But you go back to, you know, this sexual harassment thing of Harvey Weinstein and others, they were all emboldened by Clinton. Clinton did what he did in the Oval Office with a young intern, someone who was young enough to be his daughter's age. You take a look at what Clinton did. He vilified Paula Jones. He vilified Juanita Broaddrick. Sean Hannity's covered these stories for years. We've covered these stories for years. You take a look at the impeachment of Clinton, the fact that it was so serious he was disbarred. And, you know, where are the people that are condemning a president of the United States? You know, where are the Me Too people talking about Juanita Broaddrick or Paula Jones or Monica Lewinsky? You take a look at sexual harassment, and it's all about power and control. Take a look at what happened with David Letterman. David Letterman, that because he was blackmailed, had to admit that he slept with his underlings. They're women, I believe, all of them. Probably. So David Letterman reported that he would sleep with his underlings, promote them, and employ them. Right? Did David Letterman ever get sanctioned by the almighty liberal CBS network? Did David Letterman ever get an issue with that? No, David Letterman did not. David Letterman, you know, was applauded, was thought about as a nice guy. Take a look at Al Franken. Take a look at all these people. I mean, what if Ken Starr was right? You know, in this new age of Me Too. Think about this, what Bill Clinton did and how Ken Starr was ripped for being a religious Puritan, a zealot. And maybe perhaps if people would have taken those issues a little bit more seriously, we wouldn't have the issue of Al Franken and Harvey Weinstein and others today. You know, people talk about Judge Roy Moore, and now you've got the accuser speaking out on the Today Show and everything else and how bad it was. Well, if that's the case, if it was really that bad, then perhaps something should have been done back in the day.
It says, Dear Leanne, I want to apologize to you personally. I don't know what was in my head when I took that picture, but that doesn't matter. There's no excuse, and I understand why you could feel violated by that photo. I remember that rehearsal differently, but what's important is that the impact it had on you, and you felt violated by my actions, and for that I apologize.
And there we have it. Al Franken trying not to get kicked out of the Senate. So what happens if all of a sudden you're in the Senate and you've done something dastardly when you are not in the Senate? Do you get the boot? Is it time for Franken to go? And what, if anything, does this have to do with the Alabama Senate race? And again, I understand that we live in Idaho and we cover Idaho stories. What would happen if we had a Senate race here in the state of Idaho where we had those issues come up? Obviously, I think we would feel a little differently, with due respect to the folks in Alabama. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Our friend Hillary Clinton is back. We'll hear from her. No, we're not going to hold it over. We'll hear from Hillary Clinton. She was on the Fox News Channel talking about the Fox News Channel.
Unfortunately, our body politics immune system has been impaired because there has been a concerted effort, starting with the creation of the Fox network. It wasn't there when Bill first ran. It was one of the reasons he probably survived. And I think we've got to stand up, regardless of what party.
There we have it. We have this issue involving Hillary Clinton, sadly, one of the biggest losers in the history of politics, in presidential politics, not once, not twice, but 3 or 4 times. And yet she refuses to acknowledge what she did to those women that tried to stand up and say, "Me too," back before sexual harassment was such a big issue that it is today.
It's the fairy tale of economics that it's going to trickle down. We're going to make everything great. Yeah, we may be cutting Medicare and Medicaid and health care and make it more expensive to go to school and all the stuff that they're trying to do in Washington, but it's all going to work out. It's such nonsense.
And there we have it, Hillary Clinton. But again, let's go back to the 90s at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And remember, everybody gave Bill Clinton the benefit of the doubt. Where is that for conservatives? And the idea, dear true believers, that Ken Starr, that others in talk radio and in Congress were right, maybe they should have listened. Maybe Clinton should have been thrown out of office. I don't think maybe Clinton should have been thrown out of office. Maybe that would have sent a message to stop the Weinsteins, to stop these others today, to stop the Al Frankens. 580-5436, you're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And living the dream, blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. We're joined by our great friend John Mounts, program director of WERC in Birmingham, Alabama, the station where all the news happens. And certainly he's had his hands full covering Judge Roy Moore. Good morning, sir. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thanks, Kevin. We've got a lot going on with this case, and it's really funny because early on we thought that, well, the primary was going to be where this thing was decided, and once the primary was over, we said, now we can, autopilot, it's fine. The Republican will sail to victory because this is Alabama, very Republican-leading state, and as you can clearly see, that's not going to be the case. And wow, it's very close right now between Judge Moore and and Doug Jones, the guy going up against him.
Well, you and I, and you more than me now, we've covered Roy Moore from the very beginning, from the 10 Commandments to today. You've talked to him in person. I've talked to him in person. It's amazing that if these allegations are true, that no one has ever brought them up before, and even the big Luther Strange, who ran against him, the opposition research just wasn't that good, considering these allegations have always been out there. How is it playing in Alabama? And are you surprised that we're not talking Alabama football, but Alabama politics on the lead of the Today Show and ABC and other stories, that your politics are national?
It's incredible, Kevin, because on like my station, we have mostly national shows on, and every single one of our national shows is a de facto local show right now. Yes, what you mentioned is true. Roy Moore brought it up. Why now? Why was it brought up all of a sudden now when we've had all these chances for him to be vetted? These are not new allegations, or I should say these are not new. They're not saying anything happened recently. They're talking 1977, 79, 78. All of these things could have been brought up any number of the times that he's ran for office for judge, any number of the times he was kicked out of office when he did something as a judge, any number of the times he ran in the primary. Every single time. It was never brought up until 2 days after the ballots were finalized. Once John Merrill, our Attorney General, or our Secretary of State, said ballots are finalized, they can't be changed right now, boom, then come the allegations. After he bats down one, 3 more women come out. After he bats down that one, 3 more women come out. It's very suspect. I'm not saying they're not true, but it's very suspect, the timing.
All right. How unique is your state compared to the rest of the country?
I think every state thinks it's unique. I know Idaho, probably you guys find yourselves very unique. I guess everywhere it's a little different. But in Alabama, you're right. Football is definitely almost a religion here. And normally the week of the Iron Bowl, that would be all anyone would be talking about would be Alabama versus Auburn. But this week, it's almost a footnote compared to what's going on right now with our Senate race. Well,
people aren't talking about a person that you and I cross swords with, Doug Jones. You remember he claimed his claim to fame was he prosecuted the Klansmen 40 years after they blew up the church and got a conviction. Of course, you remember me. I thought that they couldn't get a fair trial, and we actually had one of them. He's still alive. Tom Blanton write me from the jail many times.
Yes, and that was. I think he's made that a big cornerstone in his campaign of the fact that, in fact, there was a interesting editorial cartoon that ran in one of the local papers that said they said what this man did with 3 little girls years ago, and it shows Roy Moore and his accusers, and it said what this man did with 4 little girls in 1963, and then it shows how he convicted Bobby Frank Cherry and Thomas Blanton for the murder of the 4 girls in 1963 at the 16th Street Baptist Church. So yes, he's made that basically his whole campaign, and really Doug Jones has kind of stayed out of the Roy Moore accusation part of this, but I guess that's because he figures it's doing the work for itself. He doesn't have to talk about it. Why get his hands dirty?
Why do you think that people love this story from Idaho to Illinois to Indiana?
Because it's salacious. People love salacious stories, and this is certainly salacious. The details are very tawdry, and that's one of the reasons. The other reason is because this has much larger implications than this state. This is a Republican vote. This was, what was then Senator Sessions' seat. And everyone thought, well, this is, of course, we can always count on this seat to always have a strong Republican vote, always going to be a conservative vote. And Doug Jones, I don't know if you've looked at some of the things that he's into, but all these pictures of him with Hillary Clinton, he is very left of center. And it would drastically change the balance of power in the U.S. Senate and, needless to say, in this state.
John Mounts joining us from WERCM, our old stomping grounds. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Well, I outed Doug Jones as a lib many years ago. Glad to see that he's still being a lib. What about the Republican Party in the state? How are they dealing with this as opposed to the National Party? Because there are Republicans, and then there's Roy Moore Republicans.
Well, the Republican Party in the state is very split on this. Although I will say more than I can't say that it's split right down the middle. For example, our Republican governor Kay Ivey just came out and said that she's concerned about the allegations, but we got to vote with the party. We got to keep Republican, and we got to vote for Roy Moore. Then you've had others from this state, including our other senator, the senior senator Richard Shelby, who said if the allegations are true, he should step down. There's been both sides, and that's the problem. Is it's a very split thing. I was in church yesterday, and the pastor gave a very impassioned plea for why it is we need to vote with our heart. He's not going to tell us which way to vote, but there's good reasons to vote both ways. So.
More coming up with John Mounts in a minute. Traffic and weather together. All right, our great friend John Mounts with us as we get ready for Fox News. How do you see this playing out? We've got about a minute left. John?
A month ago I would have said absolutely Roy Moore, but now I'm not sure. Everyone said that they're not going to seat Roy Moore even if he is elected. So that's one of the things the party is pushing for. Vote for the Republican knowing that it won't really be Roy Moore, but I don't know the word's going to get out. My neighborhood, nothing but yard signs for Doug Jones. So I think it could be down to the wire. I think Doug Jones might win.
Well, it proves that you live in a liberal neighborhood. How far you've fallen.
No, it's not a liberal neighborhood. I think people now it could be the Trump factor, where
this is a problem when this is a problem when I'm not around to make sure that you're towing the party line. Is it?
No. I'm saying that this could be the Trump factor, where people are saying one thing in the polls and one thing in their front yards, but when they get behind the closed curtain, they will go ahead and vote for Judge Roy Moore anyway. They're just going to not admit it.
It's a very astute point, really. I'm always
it could be Brexit all over again.
I'm always proud of you, young man. Thank you for joining us, and have a terrific day.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, thank you, John. Our great friend John Mounts. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning. Fox News next. Stay tuned.